Amber Edelman. My faculty mentor is Dr. Jens Clegg, and the title of my project is Voyage, Financing International Education at IPFW. So I want to start off with the motivation behind my project, how I came up with this idea. So I wanted my project to be something I would enjoy while also relating to my majors of accounting and finance. I love to travel. I had the experience of going to South Korea last year for a month on a study abroad trip. And so, yeah, I wanted to do something with the International Office just because I love it. And so through talking with Meg Underwood in the Office of International Education, I realized that only 1% of students at IPFW study abroad. And I was shocked by that number. I thought it was really low. And enjoying my trip, I was curious, since that was so low, I wanted to be able to do something about it and help other students go abroad as well. So I got connected with Dr. Jens Clegg, who's my mentor. He's a professor in the Department of International Language and Cultural Studies. He already had a vision for sending more students abroad, and so we teamed up to create this project. And these are some pictures from my trip last summer. Logan went with me, and we spent a month in Seoul. It was a really great experience, getting to see what life was like outside the U.S., really getting a different perspective. I had never been overseas, never had flown in an airplane, so that was just a whole new experience in and of itself, 13-hour flight. And got to meet people from all over the world. I mean, Canada, Russia, Korea, of course, Japan, other countries as well. But it was just really neat to build those relationships and really just yeah, experience another culture. So this is my abstract and summary, giving you an overview of my project. Like I said, only 1% of students at IPFW study abroad. And so I wanted to conduct a survey to assess the factors contributing to such a low number. And I discovered from my survey that one of the major factors contributing to that number is cost. A lot of people don't have the financial resources themselves, or they're not even on campus to be able to go abroad. I got a scholarship to go on my trip. That was $100 through the office, but now all of their funds have been wiped completely. And so I want to be able to provide funding through scholarships for these students through the proposal of a student fee that would be added onto tuition. And so that's what I asked them about in my survey, to see if there would be support for that. And there was. Once the fee is approved, I'll have to go through a process for that, which I'll talk about later. And I will set up an endowment fund that the fee money will go into, and then form a finance committee who will be in charge of allocating those funds, figuring out how much money to give out and what amounts. And I will serve on that committee as well for the rest of my time at IPFW once it's formed. And then as far as the service component, I would like to conduct budgeting sessions for students who have been accepted into a program. So this would be a one-on-one session next fall to help them allocate the funds that they have to the different costs associated with their programs. So looking at, this is a summary for the past 5 years of people that have studied abroad on campus. As you can see, there's a little bit of an upward trend, but it kind of is a little stagnant in the past 2 years. And it's also interesting that the number interested is a lot higher than the ones that have actually participated. And Meg was telling me there are 10 students so far this year that have already withdrawn for financial reasons. And if you're looking at the summer for this year, she said that, so it started out with 78, and a lot of people just stopped responding to emails or didn't even complete the application process, so now that's down to 24. So a huge drop, and I think a lot of the reason that the participated is so much lower than the interest is because of cost, financial reasons. And so I want to be able to combat that and help people go abroad. So these are my goals. I obviously want to help students go abroad and finance their programs. I hope to establish a long-term source of funds for the Office of International Education, and that would be through the endowment fund, which would allow us to have funds for many years to come, and hopefully that would grow over time as we invest them. And then forming the finance committee, which would oversee the endowment, and then they would be determining the best use of the funds, as I said earlier. And then as a result of the first 3 goals, I hope to increase the percentage of students that study abroad on campus. So this is the steps I need to go through for my project. The first one I've already done. I created and distributed a survey. And because I received positive feedback from it as far as the fee, I will be writing the proposal this summer and presenting it to Dr. Norman, the Chancellor, and the Board of Trustees. So those are the people it needs to go through to be approved that I know of. I don't know the complete process yet, but I will be figuring that out soon. And then hopefully when it is approved, I will establish the endowment fund and then be able to form the finance committee that will oversee it. That will consist of different faculty and staff on campus, staff from Office of International Education, a student, so starting out myself, and that person will be in charge of giving advice, hopefully a finance student or someone in the business field that can help in that area. And then also, I'm hoping that that person will continue the budgeting sessions that I'll be starting, so that way we can make sure that's sustainable in the future as well. So yeah, like I said, I'll be doing the budgeting sessions in addition to starting the fund, and then hopefully be able to implement the fee, not this fall because that's when I'll be going through the process, but hopefully the fall after I graduate. So I unfortunately won't be able to be here to see it take place, but I'm hoping that through my work of going through the process, it will be established. And we'll see those funds be brought in and be able to award scholarships in the future. So this is what I've done this past year. In September, I met with Meg and Dr. Clegg and got our heads together to discuss where we want to take this project. And then in October, Dr. Clegg agreed to be my faculty mentor, which is great because he's been super helpful. And then met with Dr. Andy Downs, who just gave some good tips as far as where I could take this project and what needed to be adjusted. December, we met with Dr. Schwab about IRB. And based on the nature of my project, it wasn't necessary to go through that whole process just because my data was really for my own learning and is staying within this institution, so that wasn't necessary. And then in January, met with Dr. Clegg, we went over what do we want the survey to look like, what questions do we want to ask, kind of getting the overall structure of it put together. And then in February, I completed the city training that's required for all the scholars to do, and then met with Meg to gather some info. I asked her some questions about study abroad in general that would help me to put on my survey. So after that, I compiled a rough draft of the survey with all the questions and then tapered it down a little bit. I received access to Qualtrics in March, so that I was able to design my survey on there and disseminate it. And it was out for about 2 weeks. I didn't get it done as early as I had hoped, but that was still a good enough amount of time to get the feedback I wanted. And then at the beginning of this month, I was able to analyze the data and create the PowerPoint for this presentation. So now I'm going to go into details of the survey itself, the flow of it, the different categories I asked questions about, and the results of it. And so looking at some of the details, like I said, I use Qualtrics. First time I had used it, it's a great software for creating surveys, so that was a really helpful tool to be able to do it online and not on paper. And I had 5 $25 Visa gift cards that I used as an incentive, which is great because I think that really boosts my participation rate. And then I really just utilize the different programs that I'm involved in and organizations to send the survey out. And so I just use the connections I had. So the Dormer School of Business, since I'm a business student, Susan emailed it out for me. And then the honors program, I work there. I'm also a member. Office of International Education through Meg. The True Blue newsletter, I actually contacted Alex, who runs that. And so it was actually available to every student on campus in his newsletter that he sent out. So that was great. And then with Destiny Rescue, since I'm the president, I sent it to all the members in the organization, and then also all the Summit Scholars received it as well. And so through all these different avenues, I had 325 people participate, which I thought was a really great number considering that's 4 to 5% of the undergraduate students on campus. So that was really great to see. So now getting into more of the details as far as the flow, there were 6 different sections of questions that I asked. First, the demographics, so typical on a survey, and then the education, their attitudes towards study abroad. That was a big factor for me. I really wanted to see if people were interested or not. And then from there, the barriers, so financial, which is cost, relational and personal, so whether it's a family member or an illness or anything like that preventing them from going, and then different concerns and fears they may have about going abroad, so whether it's the language barrier or the food or different things like that. And then lastly, I asked everyone about the scholarship fee, so if that would be something they would support. And so that's just a picture. In Qualtrics, you can use display and skip logic, so I use that a lot in my survey. For instance, with motivations, attitudes, I asked if they were interested, and the people that said definitely no, I would never want to study abroad, I didn't ask them about motivations because I already knew they weren't going to be interested in going. So I used that to my advantage to be able to have people only take the parts that were applicable to them. So that was a great tool as well. So now the first section, demographics, pretty typical in what you'd see in a survey: gender, age, ethnicity, where they were born. But for my survey, I really wanted to see what languages were spoken by these students and how that would affect if they wanted to study abroad. And so as you can see over here, all of these things are pretty representative of the student population. So I had a really good sample from the language chart on the bottom. 75% spoke English, which is typical, of course, and then we had quite a bit of Spanish and French and German that people spoke that took the survey, so that was really interesting to see. And then age, that was pretty spot on too. The average age of the undergraduate student, I think, is 21, and so 50% were between the ages of 20 and 23. So that was good to see too. I knew it was similar to what you'd see at IPFW as a whole in my sample. And then looking at education, I asked what degree they're pursuing, their year in college, what's their majors and minors, student characteristics. So this was whether they're first generation, whether they're an honor student, if they're an athlete, different things like that. And then I also looked at financial aid. So how are they paying for school? Whether it's through scholarships, whether it's loans, whether it's family support, or they're working. Kind of wanted to see how that would impact the different factors I was assessing as well. So this little chart here is just showing the average hours per week that people work on campus. And again, this was similar to what you'd see as a whole. A lot of people work 20 to 30 hours a week, so part-time, but there's actually quite a bit of students that are working full-time as well, so 40 hours. So yeah, that was interesting as well. This was a big question for me. I really wanted to see if people were interested in going abroad. And so as you can see from this chart, there's definitely a majority that are saying, yes, I want to go. I mean, definitely yes has the most number of people, and then even probably yes or might. So as you can see, there's a lot of interest in going abroad, and that's what I wanted to see. And then from there, I asked their motivations. So what are the reasons these students want to go abroad? And the ones highlighted in orange are the ones that students responded the most. And I had all of these as a checklist, and they just picked all the ones that applied. And I can say from my personal experience that especially the ones in orange are what reasons why I wanted to go as well. So really to grow personally, to expand my worldview, really to travel, since I already mentioned that I love to do that. And if anything, I mean, you could put it on your resume, and it's something that helps you stand out from other students, because like I said, 1% go abroad. Not a lot of people are going, so it really helps you, sets you apart. And so I think studying abroad is really valuable and something that students should do before they graduate. And then looking at barriers, this was consistent with what I expected before I made my survey. Even through talking with Meg, I mean, I knew cost was a big deal, and so as you can see from the survey, that was the huge factor, is people can't go because they don't have the money. And then there's other things as well, family, life events, different food that they may experience. People are scared of different things like that, being homesick. And then actually quite a few that were afraid they would lose their job as well, or even their scholarship. So these are all barriers that are preventing people from going abroad. And then the last section, this was the most important on top of looking at attitudes, is whether a fee would be something that could be approved, or students support this. And I was actually really shocked and pleasantly surprised by this number. 75% said, yeah, I would support a fee. And this is people that were interested, and even people that weren't still supported this. And that just amazed me, that even though they hadn't been abroad and they didn't really want to go themselves, they still would support this. And so I thought that was cool. And then I asked what amount per student per semester they would support. Little interesting results. I mean, $5 to $10 is definitely the most supported, which makes sense. It's the lowest amount. But for some reason, they hate $15. But $20 or any amount was above that. So that was, I don't know how to explain that. But based on the data, I think I'm definitely going to start out with $5. I think that's modest. I think that's not too much to ask, and it would still give us a large amount of money to work with for scholarships. So in summary of my survey, the majority of students at IPFW have not studied abroad, so about 90%. But there's 80% of the students that are interested in going. But unfortunately, cost is the #1 barrier preventing them from going abroad. In the survey, I asked a question. It said, if there was a study abroad trip that was $4,000, how much money from scholarships alone would you need to go on this trip? And over half the students said they'd need at least 50%, so $2,000 of that trip funded to go abroad. And so, yeah, so scholarships would be really helpful. Almost 90% said they would be more likely to go if a scholarship was available. And as you can see from the fee section, 75% said they're in favor of it. And so if I propose a modest fee of $5 a student a semester with 8,000 students, or that's just a guess of what enrollment would be, we would be able to provide 40 scholarships at $2,000 every year, which is huge. That's a 44% increase than the current amount of students that go abroad. So, and this number could change. We could really increase, we can increase the scholarship amount, we could increase the number of scholarships we give out, because just the principal from the first year would be $40,000, or yeah, that's right, $40,000. And so that can grow from there as we invest the money. It's really just endless. So we could provide so many more scholarships to students, which would be great. So looking ahead, this is what I hope to do this next year. I have a meeting set up with Dr. Norman in May to discuss the process in detail for getting the fee approved. And then this summer I want to create the fee proposal and present it to the Chancellor in August, which hopefully we have one by then. And then in the fall, I will be doing the budgeting sessions through the Office of International Education. And then in December, hopefully present it to the Board of Trustees then. They only meet once every other month, and so I'm hoping to catch them then. Hopefully the process doesn't take longer than I'm expecting. If not, I'll present in February at their next meeting after that. And then hopefully if the fee is approved, I will establish the endowment fund in January, and then form the finance committee as well. And then prepare my presentation to present next year at the showcase. So I'd like to end with a quote. This is actually from Mitch Daniels at Purdue, and they actually have 2 different study abroad scholarships that they have. They have funds set up that they established in 2013, and so he's already interested in study abroad. He thinks it's really valuable, and so I just want to read this quote I found in an article that he said. It says, learning in another country is an educational necessity, and making study abroad a core component of Purdue education will help students learn, grow, and prepare themselves to make an impact on a global economy. So I think that just goes to show really how important it is, and I hope that I'm able to help students go abroad and that he'll approve the fee. So, any questions? Yes.
Hi, I have a couple questions. First of all, I think that the goal of this project is fantastic. I tell all students that I have that living abroad, studying abroad was one of the best things I've ever done, so kudos to you, great idea. I guess my concern as a faculty member in the liberal arts is just seeing French majors, German majors cut from IPFW. Is what the administrative support will be for your proposal, and I'm wondering if you have any backup plans, because I mean, I think the scholarship idea is fantastic. I hope that you getting this started will get people thinking about this. Whether you've thought about kind of approaching donors for endowments. I mean, you know, we're in a harsh climate. Even $5 from students, you know, tuition's going up, and it might not be something that the school is going to easily approved. So I guess one question is if you have backup plans. And then I guess I'm curious, when you're writing your proposal, you know, if you plan to use your survey as a representative sample. I mean, I agree 300 plus respondents is fantastic, but have you considered that maybe that's a selective group that saw a title of study abroad, and those were the people who decided to respond and say, yes, I'm interested in being abroad. So, you know, how strongly are you relying on your 325 responses to say this shows us that 8,000 students are going to approve of a fee? So I know those are hard questions.
Yeah, no,
but
I was
assume
expecting
they're
them.
ones you thought of.
Yeah. As far as backup plan, I understand that this is something that could completely just fail. They could say, we're not raising rates, so you're not going to get a fee. And in order to still have a project after that, I know Kim suggested maybe working with the Office of Advancement. They handle a lot of donations, and so finding donors in the community that are passionate about study abroad like I am and want to help students go abroad. And so that could be something I could do, is try to get donations that way and still set up an endowment fund, but then the money would be from donations and not from a fee. So that's one idea I've had. Another one, it would be more just focusing on the budgeting sessions, and with that, help students apply for other scholarships. So we actually have an honor scholarship on campus. Now these are more selective, it's not just for any student, but I received one from the honors program. That one's $1,000, so if I can help students apply for that. There's also the student travel committee that has funds. Those go really quickly, and there's different criteria for that. You have to be involved in a student organization or be representing a department. So again, not for every student, but that's another avenue that they can maybe get funds. And so maybe helping them use those different avenues for getting funds, or suggest other ways of fundraising as well. So those are just two ideas I have. We'll see where it goes and what happens. I'm hoping that if I'm passionate enough in my proposal, and I don't know, that they'll want to support it, especially with already having something like this in place at Purdue. Although it's not a fee, they have a fund set up. I don't know where those funds are coming from to give out those scholarships, but I think that they like the idea of study abroad and they'll want to support it if possible. And what else did you ask in your question?
About the survey and being able to convince
Yeah.
the administration that really that many students would be.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I should open it up again and get more responses, or if there's another way that I can get student opinion. As far as convincing the administrators, I think if there's student support for it, that they'd be more likely to implement it. But yeah, that's hard, because I mean, without the gift cards, I don't think I would have gotten 325. So it's almost like I need to have some other sort of incentive to get people to even take it. But yeah, with the study abroad, excuse me, label on it, I mean, the people that are already interested might take it. So I'm not really sure how else to get the support, but yes.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I wanted to point out that actually the Dean of Arts and Sciences loves this idea.
Really?
And would be very supportive, and so it's somebody maybe to reach out to.
Okay.
I've heard him say exactly what you're talking about, for putting some kind of small fee into the structure and using it for exactly what you're talking about. So there's a champion for you.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to talk to him.
Have you looked into at all partnering with the sister cities?
I have not.
I mean, those are actually, if you actually go out by liberal arts, there are those 4 signs up, those are the sister cities.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the Chapmans are very involved in that.
Okay.
They seem to be a little bit more supportive of visiting an actual sister city, if I can help you.
Yeah, no, go
Right,
ahead.
I didn't know if that would be a limitation.
Yeah,
of what
I
they
would love
actually
to do that. It's just sometimes it might be limited to our actual sister cities,
Mhm.
and we have no programs right now. Of our 1,200 programs, none of them are in those 4 sister cities. So, but
Yeah.
last year there was a program, through a faculty-led option to our sister city in Japan, and sister cities did give them a large donation. So I think that's a really good avenue,
Mm-hmm.
but we would have to create programs around those cities.
Yes.
What's the makeup of the finance committee? Are they students or faculty or a mix?
It's going to be a combination of both. I haven't decided if I should do multiple students. That actually might be helpful to not just have one. But definitely, in order to carry it forward, I think students should definitely be represented on it. As far as faculty goes, I really just want to see who's interested. Definitely the finance people on campus who are going to be able to know, hey, we need to invest these funds in stocks or bonds, and not just, I mean, we want to be able to make sure it's diversified, I guess, in our committee as well. But I think just seeing who's interested in study abroad, who can bring in the finance perspective, and really just having a well-rounded group to help make it possible. So, yes.
So you just mentioned the possibility of investing the funds that you get from this fee. So are you thinking that it would be like a one-time thing? So like everybody pays $5 on tuition one time, and that gives you like a startup, and then you can start to grow it?
Right. I think that's something, I mean, eventually if the fund is large enough, we might can take away the fee, so it wouldn't need to be there long term. Especially if these funds are invested, I mean, we'll be earning interest on that. We can use the interest to pay the scholarships and not the principal. And so I think for at the beginning, if it's approved, we'll have a few years where we're using the fee and maybe keep it at $5 and maybe even decrease it, I don't know, in order to get a big chunk of funds coming in at the beginning. But maybe eventually we could do away with it. So that's something we will have to look into. Yes.
I will add, as the dean from your school, School of Business, we as well have, Maddie mentioned earlier, traveling to North Africa. We went to Morocco this year, but we know as well the main stumbling block, like you said, for a lot of students is the financial part of it. And so in the School of Business, we've done fundraising to completely fund those programs. And so students don't pay anything to go on a 2-week trip to Germany, Morocco, Japan, wherever we happen to be going that year. And so definitely meet up with me, set up an appointment with me, because we have some donors already that maybe would be able to jumpstart the endowment. And so then once that got going, however the fee works out, I think that actually could be really successful in trying to get it going. And I definitely support it highly as well. So let's definitely have a conversation about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Mine isn't a question, but maybe an idea.
Okay.
Is that I don't know if there's like any data anywhere of maybe people that have graduated that were really involved in study abroad or went on some trips, then maybe you could reach out to them and say, hey, would you give $5 to help someone go on a trip? Because me, myself, like I just went, like you said, to Africa. I'd never been on a study abroad. And after you've been on one, you're way more likely to help someone else go on one than maybe just like a student in the university. I don't know if that data is available, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, thanks. Any other questions?
Just one thing, also being from the School of Business, I think just increasing the awareness of this issue on campus is a big part of your project. So I think that's very valuable, and definitely emphasize that. And also, we are up for reaccreditation this fall, and this is a big part of what we want to present to our creditors, is that we have a global perspective. I mean, that's in our mission statement. So definitely, highlight these types of things in presenting our campus and our going forward.
Okay, thank you. Is that all? Well, thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.